What is up, podheads? Back with another episode of the Podioslave podcast. My name is Tony, joined as always by Anthony and Nate. And are you guys ready to enter the tragic kingdom?
Oh, I think I've been in the kingdom for 30 years.
Same, actually. Yeah, just about, right?
Dude, no doubt. I'm in to talk about.
Is that what we did? Oh, we just dad joke
No, we're
about
not
the
doing
record?
that. We're not doing that.
If you listen to the beginning of our Californication episode a few weeks ago, that's what we did. So yeah, we'll cut it there. I like that, Nate. No doubt we're all in on it, but we'll cut it there. But how you boys doing? This is the first time we've recorded in a new year. It's 2025 where we're recording right now. This will probably come out, I don't know, 9 or 10 days later. But it's a new year, new me, same me. Still love nerding. Still love doing this. How about you guys?
Yeah, same old, same old. It's just a different year. I was thinking about New Year's resolutions, and I was thinking of resolutions for the pod, and I'm like, I landed on just keep doing what we're doing, like the album deep dives, the interviews, having people join us for segments like that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I'm good otherwise. Yeah, I've been actually looking forward to recording.
Yeah, I can relate. I think it's unnecessary to set up unrealistic expectations, but also be comfortable in your skin. I was talking to a new friend actually earlier, and just kind of going back and forth on, like this is life now, just go with the flow and don't set yourself up for disappointment, and be confident in who you are. And that's kind of I'm subscribing to that for 2025. Just go with it rather than fumble into, oh man, I shoulda or coulda or woulda.
I like that.
Are you sneaking in Queen's song titles all night?
I could do. They're behind me right there. Yeah, I thought about that. I haven't done that since. When did we do that last? I did that in the Offspring episode. I snuck in Rage songs. Oh shit! I should have prepped for that.
That was money, dude. I didn't catch it. Neither of us got onto that, right?
The video was fun to make after too, because yeah, it was especially. There were a few that were hard to do, and if you're not have any clue what the fuck we're talking about, we did an episode on the Offspring Smash last year where I worked in the song titles of the self-titled Rage Against the Machine record in the conversation, and most of them were easy, but there were a few that were not.
Yeah, there were a couple in the moment I was like, that's a deep pull to pull into the conversation, but I thought about it for literally 1 second and moved on. I did not know. I had no clue.
The nice thing is you just never know when I'll do it again. So we'll keep you posted in 2025.
But yeah, it's New Year. Hopefully it comes with new music announcements. It comes with tours and all that. But it's funny you asked that, because I had a question for you guys, which is, do you have any music New Year's resolutions? And I have one.
Lead off. Tell us, what is it?
Go off, King. Less podcasts, more music, as far as listening, because it's shifted like 70% pods, 30% music. But I'm like, it's market research too. Like that's half of what it is. But I do want to get back to more bands, listen to more music.
I like that, because I think I made a concerted effort in 2024 to listen to more music than I did the year before, and I liked it, and I'm going to do more of it this year. So
this was your last year's resolution?
Kind of. I mean, without coming out and saying it, I was just like, I need to listen to more music. We talk about it every week. I think about it a lot. I should be listening to more of it than I listen to. And so I cut down on some podcasts, and stick with this podcast as the main podcast that I want to focus on. And then I'll dig into some stuff when I'm sleeping or getting ready to go to bed. But music in the car more, music in the headphones more. Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, I'm gonna follow you on that lead, because I think I was going heavy podcasts all last year. I actually was kind of going pretty dismal on music. And in terms of market research, like you said, whether it's revisiting records or checking out new stuff, some of that new stuff is just based on going on Polestar or like tour announcements, and like, oh, who are these 3 openers? I should check them out. Fuck it, why not? So I think it's a good exercise, and ultimately probably better for you, because the podcasts I listen to can get pretty depressing or too deep. And am I really gaining anything out of that? Not really. I mean, just kind of pouring gasoline on the fire in terms of anxiety, which I don't think anyone needs right now.
Doom scrolling in podcast form, Nate. We don't need that. None of that shit.
Well, it got to a point for me where it's like the music I'm listening to is as a result of the podcast, where I kind of want to be the other way. The music that what we talk about is shaped by what I'm listening to anyway. So maybe that'll come out more this year, where I don't know, we have older bands on, because I listen to a lot of 90s lately.
I'm in for some more 90s. And this, are you segueing? Is that a segue?
I was not. I am not the Segway King.
The Segway King is back. Yeah, this is a 90s OG record right here that's turning 30 later this year. And we were like throwing around some records and some stuff that we wanted to talk about, and we tossed this one out, No Doubt's Tragic Kingdom. And I know we all spent time with it probably in the moment to an extent, definitely a little bit after that. And then we probably put it away, right? And didn't think much about it for the last 20 years, 25 years, but it's an OG. We had to bring it up and dust it off and talk about it.
It's funny, you kind of like discuss how it all happens, because that's kind of what it is. It's group chat, it's group text message. But yeah, I whenever we do these deep dives, I'm like, hey, when was the last time I listened to this album, intentionally put it on? I mean, we've all heard Spiderwebs on the radio in the last 15 years, but as far as like a true listen, ooh, maybe back when I had the CD, like that long ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say today and yesterday, listening to the record. I don't think I've listened to it since it was in a Discman, so it's been that long.
That's where I'm at. Totally.
Yeah, not even like the car. Yeah, like a legitimate Discman and out of a jewel case, not like a binder. So
right,
like OG squared.
Did you bring the jewel cases? Like you didn't have a binder, you just brought the jewel cases out wherever you went?
Well, back in the Discman era, I think I only had a handful of CDs, and this was one of them. Yeah, so it was like, yeah, the jewel case is not in the car, like maybe in the backpack. I mean, it's that old, man, 96. So
sorry, I didn't mean to CD collection shame you there.
Yeah, right.
You didn't have a big binder at 11? No.
No, that came later. Not long later either. But yeah, great stuff, man. Yeah, let's talk first memories of it, right? I mean, we all remember, I would imagine, hearing Just a Girl for the first time on the radio, the lead single, right? It was like, what is this? Who is this band? And then we get Spiderwebs after that. And I remember hanging out, and my buddy Barrett's come up a bunch on this, especially talking about Blink, because he and I listened to Blink and grew up with that going on while playing video games or playing wiffle ball in the backyard, having the CD speakers going. This is a record that we put on a lot while playing Super Nintendo in his basement when we were 9, 10, 11 years old. So this. Yeah, we went back and forth between Beck, Mellow Gold, this, and Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, which stay tuned on that one. Maybe later this year we can find somebody from that record. But I'm excited to relive that by putting it on. I put it in the CD player, or put it on Spotify, but you put in the CD player as a kid, and you just turn on Troy Aikman football, and you're right back to being 10 years old. It was so much fun.
How cool were we? Think about that. Like those CDs, those games, like, I mean, I don't have a 10 or 11-year-old, but all I can think of is this generation. They're just on their phones, doom scrolling all day. Like they don't have, They have video games, yeah, but not listening to Pumpkins at 11. I don't even know what an equivalent band would be. I don't even think one exists right now.
There isn't one. You're right.
So Nate, you always say your older brother's friends got you into the cool music. Is that this story or?
Yeah, I was reflecting on it earlier. I was like, when did this happen? Because 96 is a little bit early. Like I think I was listening to music, but again, young, didn't have a whole lot of money, or no money for that matter. So like, how was I able to get into this and obtain those records? This was down the street where we grew up at the Crowley's house, which you guys know. They had 2 brothers and a sister, and they'd go there and they'd have like house parties and stuff like that, family gatherings, you know what I mean? I remember there was an indoor, like a boat mooring, but they used it as a swing, as an indoor swing, because they had a pretty high ceiling, and it was just like this makeshift like playground indoors. It was fucking rad. And I remember the stack of CDs was like Dookie by Green Day, Weezer, Blue Album, Bush, Garbage, and then a bunch of other ones, but No Doubt was one that like really stuck out. The cover art just really was captivating. Yeah, album art really hit me with this one at that age too. I was like, man, this girl is super attractive. And we put it in. It's just like I don't think I've heard anything like that. I didn't know anything about ska,
right,
or this type of pop punk ska hybrid. So, and it was a complete departure from all those other records I just mentioned. So I was like, oh, it's cool that this is in that stack. And yeah, that was the time. I think it was probably 96, 97, somewhere around there.
You're underselling the fact that you were introduced to No Doubt at future Survivor winner Bob Crowley's house.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Claim to fame.
They grew up down the street from a future Survivor winner. Yes.
Great show. Great season, too. I was wondering where that story was going to land. Like, you talking about swings and stuff. I was like, what? Was Gwen there? Did she crash
Oh
the
man,
party?
I got a
Oh,
Gwen
man.
story for us later. Well, a lack thereof, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah, for me, it was in the moment. It was actually not even on the radio. The first time I heard No Doubt was on MTV. It was Just a Girl video. So you had the visual of, you know, at the time for me, that was like edgy music, kind of what you said. Like I was so intrigued. Like there was a rawness and edginess to it. And then certainly Gwen, she's, you know, let's say it. There were not many female fronted bands. No. You had Garbage. You had, 10,000 Maniacs. I mean, it was cool to see. And she was so contagious. And there was a funk, she was funky. There was some spunk to her. It was cool. I don't know. I think we were all drawn in immediately.
Well, us and so many other people, right? I mean, because there wasn't a lot like this band and the visuals that this band gave you and the sounds that this band gave you hitting the mainstream. Like, ska was happening. Like, there were songs and records that had their own corners of the world at this point, but it wasn't on the radio. You weren't getting a song like, Just a Girl on the radio anywhere else. And you said contagious. That's a great way to describe it. It was like,
totally
I want more of this. And it kind of permeated, like you're just in. And there wasn't a lot like that. And it's definitely, I think, why everybody, a lot of people gravitated to this record back then.
Yeah, because this was 90s, obviously. Grunge, this was 95. I mean, you still had like STP putting out albums, but the grunge heyday had we were on the tail end of it. But yeah, I think honestly between them, Sublime, between No Doubt, Sublime, and then Bosstones a couple years later, like you had this kind of ska, I'm not going to say a revival because I don't think it was revival. I think that was
the start.
It had its moment. Yeah, it had its moment. It had its mainstream moment. And that was another thing that was cool about it. You had horns. Had we known bands with horns? I mean, Dave Matthews, right? Maybe that's it.
Kinda, yeah. But that was a different world because that was more like jam band.
Yeah. And I remember, like, even Just a Girl, if you isolate on Gwen's vocals, they're not like pop star, like, there was she almost sounds out of key in some of it. And it's probably on purpose. But,
yeah, that's the punk side, right?
Yeah, it was unique. It was just, it was awesome. That's a moment I wish I could relive. Is the first time I saw the Just a Girl video, because she was animated in it. She was, and is that the one that she's wearing the Gwen shirt, or is that's Spiderwebs? She's wearing, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think you're right.
Yeah, we didn't have MTV at my house, so I watched it probably at the Crowley's house for that matter. But I remember thinking like, there's some parallels with like No Doubt and like Blink-182 with like that kind of love affair with like Southern California. I'm like, this girl is so cool, and kind of opened the door to like that whole scene for me, but like a California girl that like is, I don't know, captivating in that matter. Like, oh man, like I should go there and meet someone like Gwen Stefani. She seems so just fun, and lively
Yep.
and bubbly, and yeah, and her voice too, just everything about it. I just liked everything about it. But I don't think I got a whole lot of MTV exposure other than those few videos, but that CD. But man, Gwen Stefani, crushed from day one.
I'm with you. I mean, she was one of the people that kind of drew us in as 10, 11, 12-year-olds into, I want to like music more. I like getting this different stuff. I've heard Nirvana for a while now. I've heard Green Day for a while now. I've heard Smashing Pumpkins even, a little bit before going into this year. What is this band? This is new. And she was a gigantic piece of them becoming what they were at this point, and obviously where they ended up going later on down the line, which is a little different, obviously, but I don't blame them. They got massive.
Well, and that's the thing that, I mean, I'm guilty of this. Like as a 10, 11-year-old, the first time I heard them, I assumed that was like their first album. And I think years go by, and then I check out that, I think it's self-titled, the one with the the red cover, when it just says No Doubt.
Yep.
I knew that exists, but I didn't know there was an album in between there,
Yeah, me either.
Beacon Street Collection, and there's a whole story with that. But I think for a lot of people in this era, assume they were a new band, but they had been going at it since the mid-'80s?
5 years? Yeah, probably 7 or 8 years at least at that point, right?
Yeah, I think in an interview I watched, Gwen, I think it said they were a band for like 8 years before this album came out. That's crazy.
Wow.
That's wild. Yeah. Yeah, they weren't just a band that was plucked from, you're brand new. Let's make you this industry thing. And that happened. I think that ended up happening with this band, but they had been paying their dues as a ska punk band in SoCal before that.
Doing the research on this record, I didn't know this, and I'm sure you guys maybe saw this too, that they worked on this record for like a really, really long time. Like 3 years, 93 to like 95, 92 to 95, or something like that.
Yeah.
And you can tell when you listen
3
to
years.
3 years.
Yeah.
When you listen to the track list, you can kind of differentiate like, oh, this was definitely part of those early years, and this is like on the latter half, and this is somewhere in the middle. I like listened to it twice today alone. I'm like, you can tell this has been kind of spliced together. It still plays through nice, but you can tell there's like different. It wasn't one session for sure.
There was 11 studios. This album was recorded in 11 studios over almost 3 years.
Damn.
They had turnover with the band, right? Gwen's older brother, Eric was his name, was in the band, left. I think he was like, I read that he was like some Simpsons animator or something. So it's not like he did have a dope beat to step to there.
Yeah,
but
right.
But yeah, so there's some turnover, right? And Gwen was dating Tony, and they like think about it, that's a lot going on. And she's early 20s at this point in time. You know, your brother who you started the band with, he's leaving. You're getting fame. You know, your ex-boyfriend, there's a hit song about on the
Yeah, you wrote this massive, massive song, their biggest song still, that was everywhere. You couldn't escape it, about that relationship. And you're blowing up as a band, but your personal relationships are weird and different than they had been maybe for the previous 8 years as a band.
Yeah, in interviews, I had read that like Eric was the primary songwriter. So when he leaves, the whole kind of, you know, we always talk about that when key members leave, you expect them to be the same band, and they clearly weren't, right? I mean, and we'll get into, you know, life after Tragic Kingdom and all that, I'm sure, but the lead up here is wild, and it's a story that I think even most casual No Doubt fans have no idea. I bet most No Doubt fans, well, not most casuals think this is their first album.
Yeah. Well, and we probably did in the moment too, but obviously we're music nerds of the highest degree and went back and did our homework. But great band at this time. And I wonder, and we can, when we hit this at the end, I think this will be more of an ending question for you guys, but I wonder how big they could have been or would have been if they stayed the path they were on. And you can't, the money they end up making, you can't, but I understand it'd be cool if they had.
Park that. We'll come back to that. So we all listened to this, right? I mean, we listened to it a lot over the years. Maybe not so much the whole album, the last 15 or so, but I listened to this a few times through, and I'm like, oh shit, yeah, another single. They had 7 singles.
Insane.
Wow.
7 singles over the course of 3 years, it looks like. Like
over the course of 3 years,
Jesus.
they, I mean, if you really think about it, they started recording this in March 93. The last single came out February 98.
Damn.
5 years from initial writing sessions to when you're still, his Return to Saturn, that hadn't come out yet.
Yeah, right. That's 2000.
Oh, that's 2000. Yeah, so they milked shit.
Well, and it's funny because how many times have we heard from bands and artists who are on press for their record that is coming out on this podcast say, at this point, we're like kind of over it. And that's a year and a half, not 5 years later, 6 years later. And having, you know, massive hit after massive hit. It's crazy.
And with songs about relationships that don't exist anymore. And you're reminded that they don't exist every day.
Night. You have to play it every night.
Damn. And the dynamic, like you said earlier, with Gwen's brother, the songs about the band relationships with Gwen and who is it? Tom? No, sorry, Tony.
Tony, yeah.
Which is very Fleetwood Mac-esque for our era. Matter of fact.
Don't Speak is what? The Chain?
Yeah.
Don't Speak is our generation's The Chain.
Yeah. But in terms of like that, like writing the record, all that behind the scene, another perfect behind the music type storyline. But now you can kind of see, well, record label wise, they were probably like, no, dude, you guys, we spent a lot of money. Like, you guys dragged this out forever. Like, we're going to milk everything out. We're going to put a ton of singles out. But again, you never know when something's going to blow up. You have all the ingredients for it to work out, but you never really know. So they were probably like, all right, we'll play clubs. We'll see how it goes. And the band just kind of gradually got bigger, and you just ride that for as long as you can. But I am kind of surprised they didn't jump into another writing session in between that, you know, between when it dropped 95 to call it 98, because that was kind of a hot spot for a lot of new releases. But they must have just been like under the gun, like no, you haven't paid back your advance yet. Keep going.
Yeah, it could be that, or they just had a monster. They knew they had a monster, and they knew they had a band that was resonating with a bunch of different pockets of music fans, and not just one.
True.
I think it's both. I think it's both. I think they knew what they had at the time, and I think they had put a lot of money into it up to that point. Because I read that Interscope rejected like the initial songs that they sent or that they created, and then they brought in who's the producer, Matthew Wilder.
Yep.
Who I looked at his kind of history, some monster names in there, big time producer, but a lot of stuff even after them. So I wonder how well he was known in the moment. But they big producer back then. They bring him in, and I don't know. You can tell. I listened. I skimmed the self-titled album, and then I skimmed that Beacon Street album. It's a huge level up, and it's more in the song structure and the writing. And you can tell it's intended to be maybe not a radio hit, but a major label release. Caliber song with choruses and stuff like that,
like legit song structure, right? Yeah, because there are songs on here that certainly aren't radio songs, but there are ones that I think were definitely written for trying to get airplay, and they did.
Yeah, it's still kind of a wild hybrid though. Like Tom's guitar playing is like, I don't know, I don't want to call it 80s, but it's very like Cars, kind of, I don't know, it almost like doesn't fit, but it does fit, because then you got the ska element, and then you got Gwen's voice and the drums obviously, but it just seems that there's parts when you listen to the song where it's he's just kind of going on his own thing, but it works, and it fits, and it's pop punk ska, so you can kind of do whatever you want.
Actually, that Beacon Street album was recorded after Interscope rejected the first batch of songs. Then they went off, did that album, I guess it was like small budget, independent label, and then went back to Interscope. That shit just wouldn't happen. There'd be too many strings.
Yeah.
There'd be too many.
Yeah.
With language and contracts and all that, it just wouldn't happen.
And be like, you give us what we want, or you're done. Like whatever you put out's ours. Like,
yes, we're taking that, that bedroom album, All
right, let's get into some tracks. I know we talked about there being 7 singles over 3 years, but I'm sure there are ones that stuck out to you guys. I know I texted you guys something that'll make sense to us and any of our main listeners here shortly, but let's dig into the ones that we like the most, or the ones that stood out to us. Nate, you want to lead us off with that?
Yeah, it's interesting because the last time we did one of these episodes, which is the Chili Peppers deep dive, I was very heavy into, and I think we all were with This Velvet Glove, like very much so the back half and just, deep cuts. For this record, actually, for me, interestingly enough, I actually really prefer the singles. So, I mean, it's 7.
Samesies.
First of all, it's 7 singles, right? So it's kind of the meat of it. But yeah, they all hit. All the singles hit. Every song on this is great, but those singles are just so conducive. Whereas the deep cuts are kind of like, it's like we said earlier, it's just another session. It's almost like it should almost be 2 different records, really, but it still flows. But yeah, I just like all of it. And I gotta say, Don't Speak still hits. Like there's an emotional,
so good.
Yeah, there's like hair raising goosebumps every time I listen to that. Like it couldn't be more sincere, that tune. So. Yeah, so I got to go all singles on this record for sure. Just our top 10 out of 10.
Well, Don't Speak showed their range and it showed her range. Like when was the last time you watched the music video for Don't Speak?
It's been a while, but my God, I can still see it. It's burned into my brain. It's so awesome.
It's a great music video. And Gwen, she's looks, she's less punk, right? She's less punk in that video. And she's, almost like grown, And maybe that's just the fact that was what the video called for, but they were growing in the moment too. Like I'd have to do the math, but I think she was like 23, 24, 25, still trying to figure it out. But that video is all time.
That video is all time. That song is so well written that everybody, and when it came out, I didn't have those feelings. I didn't know about those feelings to the level that we would end up learning about them, right? I mean, we all hit them at some point. But when this is on the radio in April of 96, I'm not really sure about it. Like, we like girls at 11, 12 years old. You like a significant other at that age, or hey, do you want to be my boyfriend? You want to be my girlfriend type stuff, but nothing to the level of what this song conveys. So you hear it a million times at that age, and you're like, that's a good song. I remember liking it a little bit then, but now that I know what it means, I'm like, oh, that hits so hard. That song is so fucking good. And I think it's where she becomes the star she's going to become. That song and that video and the way that it was portrayed to the world.
It's a great point. I think this was kind of almost like she's not a kid, because she had that kind of youthful thing going in the first two singles. But yeah, for me, it's Don't Speak is all time, and then Spiderwebs. I think Spiderwebs could be my favorite No Doubt song. It's certainly great choice for lead off on this album because it kind of gets it upbeat and sets the tone. But I looked up the kind of the history of that song lyric wise. Do you guys know?
I just know it's super dated now. It doesn't make any sense to anybody that's been born after 2000.
So what she says is, it's about a man. This is what the internet says. It says, it's about a man who had been calling Gwen at all hours to recite bad poetry to her, seemingly unaware of the fact that these constant calls bothered her a lot. It's crazy. Inspiration can come from anywhere, and that came from that scenario, and it hit.
Wow.
Well, she's even like, a likely story, but leave a message and I'll call you back. Like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. And screening your phone calls, if you're anywhere in the 15 to 25-year-old range and you're listening to this, screening your phone calls is when you don't actually know who's calling you. So, like, your cell phone tells you every day, and sometimes your carrier will screen it for you. But you had to listen for the the voicemail back in the day to figure it out. So you just didn't answer if you didn't want to talk to somebody that was calling you every day reading you lame poetry.
Yeah, there was no scam likely.
Yeah.
Scam.
The scam likely.
Yeah, well, now if my phone doesn't recognize the number, I'll Google it really quick. And it's like fraud alert or robo killers, all these, websites that come up. It's all the same bullshit. But yeah.
Here's a tangent for you. I remember getting a phone call as a kid at my house where I grew up, and my mom was great. She was there for us. I'm starting the story with that. She was always around. She did everything she could, and my dad too. I live with my mom. My parents are separated, so phone rings. They're looking for my mom, and I'm sick of getting scam phone calls, right? So I answer, and I'm like 12. I'm around this age. And the guy's like, is your mom there? And I'm like, no, she left 3 days ago. I don't know when she's coming back.
Oh, Jesus.
And the guy was like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, no, if you see her, can you tell her to come home? We're hungry. And I hung on the phone.
That's fucking awesome, dude. Wow.
Yeah, I'm an asshole. And my mom did not leave for 3 days, for the record.
And that guy clearly didn't care because he didn't follow up with anyone.
Yeah, no police showed up at the house.
Oh, man. So this was in the beeper days, right? Beepers were around in the mid-90s?
Yep. My mom worked at the hospital, so she had a beeper. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my beeper kept beeping.
Oh, man. But yeah, that's a great song. And you're right. I think musically, it's either my favorite or second favorite. Don't Speak's probably my favorite. This one's my second favorite. And I like Ex-Girlfriend off the next record a lot, too.
What about Sunday Morning?
I like singing Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
All time. A song that I forgot existed was track 2, Excuse Me, Mister. I used to love that because as a kid, again, you'd be more apt to listen to this stuff in sequence versus bouncing around like we do now. But I remember going Spiderwebs into Excuse Me, Mister, Just a Girl. Happy Now I skipped. Different People. I don't know if there's a few in there that I maybe skipped.
So Different People is a Rustic song musically. A band that we grew up with. Local band to us. They were big around, forming around this time to become what they were locally for us before they did sign major. But this sounds like it could have been on one of their first records musically. Obviously, the front people are different, but I listened to it and I was like, this sounds like a Rustic song.
The classic horns with a groove, man. Yeah, it does. It does sound a lot like Rustic. Rustic overtones. Go check them out.
You know what's funny? You just said you would skip a few songs. Like in prep for this episode, I was like, have I heard this song before? Like I clearly, like in the Discman, skipped a lot of songs back in the day. I don't think I was listening to this record front to back then. And maybe since we were saying that we haven't listened to this since then. I might have heard some of these songs kind of for the first time. Like I probably listened to it once or twice, but kind of went right for the ones I knew. So that just shows you how much space there is in between.
It was too long. It didn't need to be an hour. It didn't need to be as many tracks as it was. But that's also coming from today where like shit, half the time all we get's an EP. So I'm listening to something that's 20 minutes long, and I can listen to it 3 times by the time this record's over. So it's a different world than it was in '95.
That was one thing that I thought. Oh, I was when I was listening back. I was like, "Geez, this is like 14 songs." At some point, it is diminishing returns, unless you're saying, "Hey, let's pump out 18 tracks," and our plan is also to have 7 singles. Like we're gonna put as many of these on, so we can test the waters if they're gonna hit as a single. I don't think they were doing that with this. I don't know. They could have got out of this
11.
the whole Tool approach and like throw in nine
Yeah.
songs. No, I would say probably
11
10 or 11.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a perfect 11 song record in there.
I think you're right. There's some fat that could be trimmed here.
You're right about the length of the record too. Like there's only so many exceptions, and one is like a spacey record, like 311 Transistor. There's like 18 songs in there or 17 or something crazy.
20 maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like I mean half the songs are just that, space cadet stuff. It's like
Jamming
okay, yeah, so it can kind of flow into whatever, but
Former guest of the pod, Peanut. They were just on their spacey bullshit back then. That's pushing 32, right?
Yeah, next year.
Yeah, because Blue is this year, is 95. Or yeah, 95 would be 30 years, which is wild too. Man, we're old. What happened?
So we talk tracks, and I think the punchline is there are 7 singles. So I would say 6 out of those 7 are bangers. I think Happy Now and was it Hey You? Were those the last 2?
Yep.
Yeah. Those, I think while they were technically singles, like I don't remember those ever on the radio.
Me either, like at all. I was surprised to see them as singles.
Yeah. Observation from me, and this is an observation I've always had, but just kind of digging back into it, is even in this era of the band, how upfront they put Gwen. From the music videos to the album cover. And I think that maybe, I feel like I read that caused friction and whatnot, and I don't see how it couldn't, There's always talks, I'm not saying this about No Doubt, there's always talks about some bands where just the singer is signed and it's just kind of, the other members are, they're part of the band, but, the checks are a little different.
Mm-hmm.
And I could imagine that could ruffle some feathers. I don't think this was that scenario, but she is definitely up front, and it, as we say, there's stair steps to that solo career.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, they became poppier on the next record, poppier on the next record, and then she started doing stuff with other people and making music on her own, which she was destined to be a star. She is a star. We saw it in the Don't Speak video. You know what I mean? It's there. The stair steps start there, but for the mass public, but they were a different band 5 years later.
I even looked at Spotify listens. No Doubt, I think has like 11 or 12 million. Gwen's solo career, monthly listeners, Gwen's solo career has over 35 million.
damn.
Wow.
She's getting triple, and that's like Hollaback Girl and all that stuff. Rich Girl. But yeah, it was totally noticeable in the moment where, and you're right, I think Don't Speak was the turning point for her.
It's a really good point. It actually, you guys saw the movie Rocket Man, that Elton John? Did you see that one?
No, I didn't see it.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's a part in that
It's
movie.
about Elton John, right?
Yep.
Spoiler alert.
Spoil.
Well, a spoiler alert that I'm going to drop just because it's parallel to this story is like there's an A&R guy, or I think it's his manager, is basically like saying, ditch the band, and just, it's all about you. It's all about you. And so I wonder, like with No Doubt, we wouldn't know unless we talked to the band or her or something. But I almost feel like it wasn't intentional, like coming from her. But I could just be putting her on a pedestal, like, no, you weren't trying to take all the fame, right? I wonder if it was label and management pressure, like, no, you're the star. The band's whatever, like you're the star. You're going to be on Rolling Stone. The band doesn't have to be on the cover. It's just about you. But maybe it gets to that person's head after a while, where it's like, well, it is working, okay, and that's kind of where the solo thing kind of falls. Kind of the rollout is already predetermined,
I'd love to know, because when does her first solo album come out? Like 2003?
Let me look it up.
I think it was 2005, I believe, because I
went that late. Okay,
because I went to the tour for the first record.
Because Tragic was 95, then you get Return of Saturn 2000. They come right back with Rocksteady 2001, and then there was a 6th album, Push and Shove, in 2012. But yeah, her solo career was definitely after Rocksteady. 3 weeks later.
Yeah, Spotify doesn't do a good job of that. It's 05.
Oh wow, nice.
Oh no, it's 04.
04. Okay.
Yeah, it's 04. So
Yeah.
9 years later.
9 years later. Wow. Because you got to remember, and this came up, I don't know, in a recent episode, the 95 Warp, the first Warp Tour, No Doubt was on that. Damien brought it up. Yeah, the first Warp Tour, No Doubt was on that in 95, right before this album came out. So I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if they had like stayed with that sound and that type of scene, what they would have been as a band, right? Like they went poppier, then she went solo. I'm sure there were people along the way saying, "Go poppier, you'll reach more people. Go poppier, you'll reach more people. Go solo, you'll reach more people," which she did. I mean, all that happened. But do they stick with, if they stick with the No Doubt sound and they stay in that vein? Obviously, the ska stuff probably goes away a little bit. Some of the horn stuff goes away, but they stay kind of a poppier punk band. Are they still big? Yeah, I think they probably are, just because she's a star, but not to the level that she ends up being.
Agree, 100%. Yeah, and it's funny, on Return to Saturn, I skimmed it, and it's, again, those stair steps continue. So if you were a self-titled fan to Tragic, huge leap. This one to Return to Saturn, but Return to Saturn still has, you can still tell it's No Doubt. It's got the horns. I think the leap from Return to Saturn and Rocksteady, and I'm looking at their wiki here, is only a year apart. That's when it kind of, what's off that? Feeling Hella Good.
Hella Good, and
Hella Good.
Yeah. And that's a pop song. That's just a pop song.
Hey Baby.
Yeah, Hey Baby too. Yeah, another pop song.
A whole different band at that point. Underneath It All. Although Underneath It All, it could have been that album's like Don't Speak, but overall they had lost me. Yeah, I mean,
you weren't listening to that in 2001. You were listening to new metal, man. You listen to Limp Bizkit. I know.
But I'm just in my head. I'm thinking, hey, maybe Holla Back Girl was presented to No Doubt.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's kind of where I was going. Actually, is I wonder if there was a behind the music type creative differences, like, well, Gwen wants to do this thing, and the band is kind of, certain members of the band want to stick to their roots and do the classic No Doubt trademark, but like a comedian or anything, like you kind of have to evolve, and like the pop punk sound, like it's an era. So if you're older now, you're really going to talk about being 16? No, I mean, you can. Is it resonate? Not really, so I wonder if this was kind of the clincher with Rocksteady. It's like, okay, it's not really working. So a year later, these songs that we've written, I'm just going to go to a solo record, and we'll take a hiatus. Because I remember I saw No Doubt and Blink in 04, and basically both bands broke up after that.
I wish I was supposed to go to that, and I said no. We'll catch Blink at a different time. I know I brought this up already, but we'll catch Blink another time, and then they broke up.
Well, I do remember listening to a clip from Gwen recently. So let me get my facts straight. Did they reunite recently?
They reunited at Coachella last year.
Coachella last year. So this was an interview leading up to that. This was an interview last year. And the interviewer, I think it was K-Rock. Someone on K-Rock was like, talking about the reunion. And she was like, I can't listen. This is what she said. Like, I can't listen to some of those songs because of how they speak to me. And she's feeling that now. Maybe she felt that back then. And it's like, I'm kind of sick of doing these songs. I want to go out solo.
Yeah. Well, and it's like probably walking through a haunted house, right? It's like, I lived this. I put it in the past. I've had other relationships. I don't need to relive those.
I think it's another Fleetwood Mac kind of parallel, because like they kicked out Lindsey Buckingham, who had a relationship with
he had a relationship with McVie and with Christine McVie and Stevie Nicks, right?
And that was Stevie Nicks. Yeah, exactly. So I wonder, like, those old wounds, like you're saying with her, it's like, well, not only I have to sing them, I have to be on stage with the guy too. Like, this is ridiculous. It's like high school reunion on tour. Fuck that,
and he just broke up with me.
Yeah. And to that point with the Coachella performance, I remember seeing that and being super stoked. Like, oh, nice. This, in theory, could be the kickoff to like a reunion tour. Because I think there was quotes from other members, not her, but I think I read something from Tony. Like, yeah, dude, we're rehearsing. We're stoked. Hopefully it leads to more things. Because I know Blink's on tour and, they're about to kick it off. So it'd be cool if we did it together. In fact, we toured together with those guys and it was a blast. And I was thinking, oh, they're back. Just like a lot of the reunions, like this is going to happen. But it wasn't. It was a one-off. Well, I guess two off, because they did two Coachella back-to-backs.
For now. You never know.
For now. And then Gwen, the rest of the dates for the rest of the year, including one that I saw in San Diego for Wonderfront Festival. She toured solo, and it sucks for the band because she does her solo stuff, but she does half her set is No Doubt songs, so she's kind of eating her words there.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're gonna play some of those songs that you're comfortable with, maybe not all of them, right? She gets to pick and choose there.
Still, though, the band's at her mercy. Like, nah, I'm not gonna tour with you guys, but I'm gonna play the songs.
Yeah. Well, maybe. That might rub me the wrong way if I was in the band, but I'm also still like, those songs are huge and probably still pulling some money down, right? And they get to play Coachella and I'm sure pulled a decent chunk of change to reunite 9 years later at Coachella.
Yeah, here's the thing: is like, I really kind of only like one No Doubt album, but I would go see them in a heartbeat. You know,
Same. Yep, it's this one, and I'm right there with you.
and in my view, those other albums are almost a different band. Even pre the Smash, like if you take No Doubt, Tragic Kingdom by itself, I think it's a phenomenal album. Like this album still slaps. Had so many singles, but it is interesting. They did. I was trying to think of another band that had this same kind of trajectory, and it's a tough. There aren't many. There really aren't.
There aren't many. Yeah, you're right. I couldn't come up with one, and I'm sure if you guys out there in listener land can think of one or two, shoot us a DM, but I couldn't think of one. This is a wild kind of test case here that the way this all happened, what they started as, how they blew up, and what they turned into. It's insane.
Well, what's kind of funny is I read that Tragic Kingdom, it went diamond. So 10 million plus copies. Wow. But here's the crazy thing. The albums after it didn't sell that, but I think they got bigger and bigger. So maybe that was just like the piracy era, who knows? But it's funny, I feel like the sales got lower, but they got bigger as a band. Just maybe just more casuals, you know, that aren't buying the records and whatnot. But I think this is a record that's fully deserving of diamond status.
Yeah, I would agree. And it was at the right time for that too, right? It was pre too much pirating and pre streaming. Like the only way to get records in '95 for the most part, where you're going out to buy the CD on Tuesday or Monday night at midnight, right?
Everyone had this album. Everyone had it. It was in the BMG, like Columbia House, like it was in that wheelhouse. You know, a lot of people got it through that. But when you roll that deep with that many singles, you're going to get people buying it deep and deep into, you know, its existence. Absolutely. And I'd love to see when did it go 8 times platinum? Because it was probably, I mean, when you have a 3-year rollout.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I wonder if it's like a linear, like, you know, bar graph, like every year it's, you know, compounding times 2 or 3, 4 or 5, and it kind of plateaus in 2000.
Yeah, let's pump out another single from Tragic Kingdom. Another one? Dig deep. Go for it.
Find another one. Oh, man. All right, do we have anything else we want to hit on with this record before we call it a night, boys?
Yeah, actually, this brought me back to when we did the Linkin Park episode, which was how the band was kind of firing on all cylinders. And so no doubt, I kind of brought myself through this test earlier. Do they have tracks? Yes. Are the optics of the band good? Yes, they're phenomenal. Do they have a cool name? You know,
all-time name, yeah.
You know, they seem like cool people. You know, they get a cool story, etc. Well, I think one of the kick-ass things about this album is the name rules. Tragic Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where it came from?
No,
I do, but I read it earlier in prep too. That it's a reference to Disneyland, right? But also a diss to OC.
Yeah, it's the album is named after the nickname guitarist Tom Dumont's 7th grade teacher had for Disneyland.
That's amazing.
Tom Dumont's 7th grade teacher fucking hated Disneyland.
Move, dude.
But I never knew that either. You know, that's the cool shit about all these deep dives is I never knew the name of it. I just accepted that it was a cool. There were 2 words that were cool next to each other. You know.
It's a great. I mean, the band name is awesome, and this record name is awesome, and the album art is awesome. Like the packaging of the whole 9 yards is perfect, and I love that came from a 7th grade teacher. I'm trying to think of what we would name an album from a 7th grade or a freshman year teacher. I'm gonna have to get back to you guys on that one, but that's amazing. It's perfect.
What's the legacy of this? I think it's their best album, one of the best albums of the '90s. It really is, pound for pound.
Yep.
Heavily weighted and led by the singles. So there's some fat to be trimmed, but with that many singles, no one really cares. I mean, you can make people look the other way when you have that many singles.
Yeah, you don't mind buying it because you're still getting bang for your buck if there's 7, 8, 9 really good songs on there.
Yeah, all-time album.
Yeah, I think culturally for us too, like being in Southern Maine growing up, and call it MTV or not, just these records, any of these bands that are kind of giving us this, I don't know, preview of what it's like in that scene. It's just so, it makes sense that it's marketed so well, because it's kind of like the cream of the crop. Like, oh, Southern California, good vibes, really colorful artwork, this extremely attractive front woman in an era where we were buying CDs, whether it was the penny CDs or you're getting them in your Christmas stocking or Easter basket one. Things like
Easter
that.
basket hit.
It's like the 5th episode in a row. Shout out baskets.
Right?
Yeah.
You cherish those things, and that record gets extreme play in your Discman or whatever you want to call it, boombox, because it's one of the few things you own, and it's just captivating because of the I don't want to call it time travel, but it's a portal to a different dimension. You're like, oh man, I want to be part of this. I don't know what this is, but this is cool. I could stare at this booklet and go through this all day and just kind of try to figure it out. So for us, it's just another gateway to something that we didn't get to see firsthand and kind of live it vicariously.
Well, we did get to see it. We had the record. We did open the CD booklet, right? We just didn't see him live. You did, Nate?
Yeah, that was that time with Blink 04.
Right. Yeah.
Tweeter Center.
You didn't see him, right, Anthony?
Never saw them, but I saw Dream Car.
Did you really?
Wow.
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Is that Tony's band?
That was basically No Doubt with Davey Havoc singing of AFI.
Oh, yeah.
They were pretty good, actually. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
I haven't thought about that band since they first announced what it was. So what was it, 10 years ago, 15 years ago? It's been a while.
Probably 10 years ago. Yeah, close.
Dream Car. That's great. Oh, man.
Never saw them. I don't even think I ever really had a shot. Did they ever come to the Civic Center? I know we determined they were not on that Bush show, but
they must have played Maine at some point, right? I'm going to look that up real quick, but I bet they did.
But you're right, Nate. It was a peak, and that's why I love a lot of the music I like, which is it's so foreign from like my world. You know what I mean? And that was a cool thing about bands like No Doubt, Red Hot Chili Peppers. When we were younger, it was a glimpse into the West Coast, which, being from Maine, it's like a whole different country. Wait, people surf? What? What's surfing?
Didn't catch him either. Bummed I didn't. I know the closest I think I got to catching anybody in the family was when we met her son at the Bush meet and greet like 10 years ago, Nate. Remember that?
Yeah.
He said,
Mm-hmm.
I have a Bush like flat signed by their son, Gavin and Gwen. And then Nate and I thought, a girl, like the nanny ran across the stage during that show and we thought it was Gwen. So Nate and I waited outside until like 1 a.m. to try to catch a glimpse of Gwen, and it wasn't Gwen.
It wasn't her.
Super
Case
sad.
of the false Gwen.
Oh, dude. Tried to meet her multiple times. That was one time. And the solo tour I was talking about earlier in 2005, I went with Rob, friend of the pod, Rob. And we saw her first solo tour in 2005 at, was it the Garden, I think, in Boston? And we had some kind of backstage thing. And I was like, sweet, I'm going to finally meet Gwen and talk to her and stuff. It's going to be awesome. But it wasn't a meet and greet. So it's just one of those, like, call it back to the Offspring. Here's a VIP pass that does nothing.
Yeah. Here's your VIP pass. Good luck in your seats.
It looks cool, but that's
Peace out, bro. Yeah. So we never naked to see him. Twan I didn't, and maybe now that they're semi reunited, they'll play the Civic Center or something. Probably not.
Definitely not.
All right, boys. Let's call it there.
Yeah, let's call it. We're not going to say what we got planned. Got a fun one next week planned, and the week after that. Yeah, I'm not going to give too much away, but we got some stuff in the works, and it's not interviewing Gwen. She's not coming on. But.
No, but we do have stuff in the pipeline. We do have stuff on the hook that's wiggling around. We're trying to pull out of the water, so we'll see how it goes. It's 2025 now. We're back for more nerdery.
You'll skip Blake Shelton and then de facto Gwen.
I'd listen to. Yeah, I talked to Blake. Blake would be fun to talk to.
Yeah, you never know. Do some country. Get some more. Spread our wings.
Country. Let's go.
Spread our wings a little bit. But yeah, dude, I'm stoked.
Peace, drones.
I'm stoked for 2025. LFG. Let's fucking go. Cheers, dudes. Nerds.
Peace, buttheads.
Cheers, Jones.
Cheers, drones. Thank you for listening to Podioslave. We are at Podioslave on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of the places that you can find us on social media. Facebook, Podioslave Podcast. YouTube, Podioslave Podcast there. Email us at podioslavepodcast@gmail.com. And hey, if you want to become a supporter, click on the link at the bottom of the episode and give us $1, give us $5. It keeps the lights on, keeps us going. We really appreciate that stuff. Thank you.
You looking it up, Tom? Yes. We'll have to cut this, or we leave it in. NPR Nate's back.
NPR Nate, I can't find it. I don't know if they played Maine or not. I don't think they did. They were supposed to.